It Happened on the Job, the podcast for relatable conversations with contractors. Sponsored by Goodman Insurance.
Welcome to It Happened on the Job. We are episode 85 today. Our guest of honor is Steve Hutchison, Executive Vice President of Executive Vice President of CG Signage. How you doing today, sir?
Good. Thanks.
Hey, Steve.
Thanks
How's it going, man?
Thanks for coming in, man.
Thank you.
It's fun to have people in. Kind of how we get started on a lot of these is give us a little of your history, how you got started in this industry and the road to where you are now.
All right. Well, I started, like we were talking about before we went live was I got in through design. I wanted to be a designer. Actually drove around the country looking at these old signs made in the 30s and 40s and 50s. Thought they were cool.
Like gas station signs and stuff?
Yeah, just all that vintage neon stuff. And through that decided, well, why don't I start making these things? Why don't I make them look like this? Why do people make signs look boring? Let's make cool signs. And the more I got into designing them, the more I realized two things. Number one is really hard to make good money as a designer. Like I might as well go for being a pro baseball player. And number two,
it's like being a songwriter, right? I mean, if we're going back to music, right? You could write a billion songs, but you have to have that one before you make any money.
Yeah, and it's like, what are the odds of that?
Right.
Like besides the superhero designers out there, like what are the odds of being able to, I've always wanted to have a wife and kids, and I started thinking, like you, tallying up the numbers of what it takes, and I'm like, well, probably not going to get there, or if I do, it's going to be really hard. And, the other aspect of it was the end product has so much more to do with like construction and materials and even engineering. And it gets deep. I mean, it's one thing to draw a pretty picture. It's another thing to really like make this thing. And it starts getting really heavy, and it engaged me like intellectually, where I wanted to figure out how this could get done. Then, of course, you got to figure out how to get it up. And that's all the contracting side of things. And I started seeing that, well, that's really where not just the money, but that's like the decision making is happening at that level.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you want to be dealing with the architects and the contractors and the owners long before anybody told you to, hey, draw this and make it look cool.
Right.
So it just seemed like A, like probably better revenue stream, and B, you actually had more influence over the outcome.
Yeah. Being involved from the very beginning.
Yeah. So that I slowly I stayed in design, but I would just try to get my foot into project management, and then I try to get my foot into the shop a little bit. Then I try to get my foot into contract writing and all this stuff. And eventually it just got to the point where you just get to wrap your arms all around it. And it probably says a lot about me being a control freak too, by wanting to do all that. But, half ADD where I just needed to stay driven with the attention, and the other half was I want it to end up the way I want it, the way I like it, the way my vision has some kind of collaboration involved with it too, because obviously I don't know all of it, and I need these intelligent, talented people to help me, but I still want to like drive it. I want to kind of be maybe at the front of the pack saying, hey, let's do this.
So were you involved in the inception of CG Signage, or did you come to them as an employee, or how did you start with them?
No. So I was, at the time, I was trying to work on this almost like a design build brokerage, right? Where we would have other people build, but we'd come up with the ideas and we'd contract everything, and we'd sort of be the face that the owner sees.
Right.
And I was using CG Signage as a fabricator, installer, contractor, and the owner and I we hit it off. He saw things very similarly to the way I saw things, and he had the same wanting to get your arms around everything. And I started thinking about it from like a business perspective. This guy is starting at square one, thinking about everything from almost like an assembly line and what is the most efficient way of doing this, instead of going to these companies that had 40 or 50 years of experience and you got all this stuff you got to work through.
Right.
And he's entrepreneurial, and he just it was a good fit. And we started talking, and he's like, well, why don't you just come do this for me? And I started thinking about it. It's probably a lot more beneficial to work for a company that has more control over the fabrication because they're doing it, than having to get in my car and drive to visit. I would drive to his shop so many times that I'd show up and he'd be like, "You're here again? Get out of my office." And the best way to not have him say that to me anymore. Is to show up every day because he was, I'm on his payroll.
Right. Right.
So that's really how I got, into CG. And I ever since then it's been a lot of fun. I mean, we've seen the company grow. We went from having this little building to having 2 buildings, increasing staff, increasing volume, all the fun stuff that comes along with growing a business.
And how long ago was that you went full time with them?
Almost 4 years ago now.
Okay.
Yeah. And because what had happened is before that, I was with this really big sign company on the East Coast. I'd moved back east, and we were doing all these really big projects. Like we did 49er Stadium, we did the Yankee Stadium, we were doing I did Miami International Airport, all these big name things, come with a lot of prestige. But with the companies you're working with, like I said, there's a lot of history, and it's harder to get all the different moving parts and pieces in a manufacturing company that also contracts to just hit on all 8 cylinders, because there's A, a lot of other jobs, and B, there's a lot of culture, and all these little divisions and departments or cultures kind of clash, and you end up getting infighting. Whereas on a smaller company, and I think that's one of the reasons why small to mid-size sign companies work so well, is that it's one culture, and you've kind of got everybody in one boat rowing together, and it's easier to communicate. So, as far as my experience with CG, that's all it's been.
Yeah. So you say small to mid-size stuff. What kind of stuff are you guys doing where you're at now?
So the cool thing is we still do what I consider to be pretty big, cool projects. We do a lot of high-end luxury housing. We're working. We just finished a job in Northridge for Snyder Langston called Symmetry. We also have a vertical market in healthcare. So we're doing Sutter Medical Center. It's a big hospital in downtown Sacramento. And
you guys do everything, exterior, interior, doors, windows, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
All the signage?
All the signage, yeah. And then even, we're working on a lot of different architectural accoutrements, if you want to call that. Sometimes it doesn't really fall in the signage category, but it's custom manufacturing. We custom manufacture, so it doesn't really necessarily matter what we're making.
Right.
But yeah, we started off, I think that the emphasis at one point in time was a lot of the ADA and Braille signage. And that's really where we have our efficiencies. But then you have this custom stuff, this one-off stuff. And we've really started to flourish in that. And
just little design features and all that kind of stuff, around the building? Yeah,
or big stuff. A lot of times these big signs that were on the exteriors of the buildings, that takes a lot of attention.
Right.
You're going to put a lot of effort into one sign versus just doing a run of 1,000 signs and just trying to knock those out quick for an inspection. So at this point in time, I kind of like the fact that we have enough equipment and employees that we can just jump between those two things and have them going concurrently instead of having one, kind of slam you. And then you have to reorganize. We don't even have to bother with that anymore with the second building. We're working on some projects for the VA, which is really cool.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. So there's a couple of VA hospitals going up around the country. They're building all the time. Yeah. So we're in the process of working on some of those. We finished, we actually installed VA Chico. We didn't fabricate, but we installed that. So, we'll have jobs where we'll have an opportunity to get our foot in the door, prove ourselves.
Right.
In this instance, it worked out great. So now they've got other ones going up, and we're all, we're out.
And what's your role? What's your role now? And were you hired in the role that you're at now, or did it evolve? Or
yeah, the whole idea was just to get in and just help make it scalable. Dealing with a lot of the hiring. Obviously, in a smaller company, everybody rolls up their sleeves, and we're all doing the same thing. So project management of the projects. He's got his core business, but as the business is growing and there's projects that he can't handle, I'll jump in and I'll take over this one or take over that one, or we're just shoulder the weight together.
Yeah.
Getting a new building, that really took him a lot of effort. He's got to deal with the leases and the equipment stuff. So then somebody's got to keep the production running the operations. Yeah. So, and then obviously still making sure that our installers are getting out there and getting things up and making sure the customers are happy. So it's really a lot of everything. The big picture, as we have become more scalable and as we've got the employees that we need now and we're happy with how things are going, is starting to work a little more on business development, and which is what I wanted to do in the first place.
Right.
But stepping in, we were like, okay, here's the
Got to
step.
get the systems in place.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even things as simple as procedures and job descriptions.
Right.
Are you going to have a good team unless they know what they need to do and what we're expecting them to do?
Well, from a hiring standpoint too, right? I mean, it's easier to bring people on if you've got a foundation laid for what their job looks like and helps them out. So what does your staff look like from a production and installation and a project management standpoint?
Well, right now we're up in the 30s. What I have though is I have a guy up north who's like my install manager, and we have like a Northern California, a pin in the map, so to speak. But that's really, we're going to be building that up and getting a location and hiring more people as that volume's increasing.
Right now, you're just sending people up there to work with him.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot. The cool thing about Signage is it's so all over the place.
Right.
I have a ton of plaques and interior jobs. I can just ship up to him and he takes them and handles them himself. And then I might have some really big monuments and I'll just send a guy up there. He'll deliver it and then send to the delivery guys, also the installer. They can help him out. Yeah. And then there's times when, you get like things like digging holes all day long. You can hire ready labor to do that kind of stuff. Yeah. And as long as you keep an eye on them, you're in good shape. So, and I got our sales exec is down in San Diego. And then she works hand in hand with like our project director, who like project manager, but also like really does a lot of the wayfinding and design elements that happen on our end, on the production end of things. And she's in Arizona. And these are all people that I've just worked with in the industry throughout the years. So we're trying to kind of expand out. Got another sales rep in Utah. You
guys are pretty, what do I want to say, remote too, right? I mean, a lot of people working.
For those folks, yes. Yeah. I mean, obviously in a shop, you have to build it. So our production team's all in-house. During the height of just trying to keep everybody safe, we did have anybody who could work from home. Right. And as your guys building stuff in their garages and bringing it into the shop for you. Yeah, even though the great part about getting the new building is we haven't fully scaled into as big as we want to be. Right. So I have all the space. Yeah, spread out. Yeah, the whole 6 feet apart thing didn't even apply. I mean, we were like 18 feet apart.
Like we're good.
Yeah, and everybody's masks. I mean, it's all
already through the production process.
Right. Yeah. We don't want anybody breathing any dust. Or, so everybody already had masks. Everybody already has personal protection, and we're all 18 feet. So we kind of sat down and said, what do we need to do to keep employees safe?
And a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah, I mean, they're
little really things.
Yeah. Antonio and I are the guys that are like, we need to be the ones wearing the masks because everybody else already has one on.
Right. So. Well, and I feel like when COVID started, the whole term PPE became a big thing, right? Mm-hmm. And I told my wife,
contractors,
this is like that's day to day. We already do that.
That's part of the vocab. Yeah. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. So it's been interesting, but I mean, I feel like it didn't really affect a lot of our daily operations.
Yeah. If anything, I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, especially if you're that involved in healthcare, with a lot of that stuff kind of shut down, or certain areas of that stuff shut down, you might have even got a little bit busier or asked to move a little bit quicker through some of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, so some of the hospitals are like, we're on hold because everything is just crazy and we don't know what we're going to do.
Right.
Other of the hospitals are like, we need a lot of stuff to get through this. Please give us as quick support as you can. But then what I found too is like, we do a lot of work for the Irvine company and they're no longer, property managers aren't giving tours. They're doing self-guided tours. And that was like a gigantic project and a wonderful opportunity to create all of these stanchions and displays that are like, this helps people to do tours on their own.
Walk through on their own.
Yeah. Right. So it was interesting how it seemed like there might have been a little curve, a little bit of a curveball, but it all sorted out.
Yeah. Pretty quickly.
Yeah. And we just looked at it as like, okay, well, we'll just take what we do here and we'll just copy paste this process and it all works.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel like working for that small company where everybody kind of knows how to pivot really quickly probably translated really well when things started falling apart, at least out there. It's like, oh, no, we do that daily, right? So we can figure that out.
Being flexible. Yeah. And we kind of have a rule that we try to have, we have everybody at least one level of overlap. Like everybody who does something can do something else if somebody can't
cover for somebody
And a lot of times we have that 2 or 3-fold or 3 or 4-fold even. So the goal was, even if something happens, even if somebody gets sick, even no matter how we scale, we'll still be able to produce the same amount of product at the same amount of time and not have the lag or the downtime.
Right. From an employee standpoint or a hiring standpoint, what do you guys looking for? I mean, it sounds like culture is huge with you guys, which it seems to be a pretty popular theme with some of the more successful companies. And when I say successful, I don't even mean dollar amount, right? I mean, you can be doing $3 million a year and still be considered successful. But so, what are you guys looking for when you're hiring somebody? Be it experience or culture, or do you have a training program, or what does that look like when you guys are bringing people on?
We've been having a lot of discussions about culture and realize that it's hugely valuable.
Right.
So I think that if we're talking about like the most influential decision, is this person, do they fit our culture? Not just for our sakes, but for theirs.
Right.
Nobody wants to come into a company where they don't fit the culture and they're miserable.
Right.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have been there.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah.
It's rough. So, but obviously there's a skill set that you need to know depending on the position. Because we're in manufacturing and because signage is such a specialized field, not everybody's going to know it. So they just need to be trainable. And not every action that we're taking requires like a high level of skill. So
It just requires the right skills.
right. And those skills are so easily acquired with the right attitude. And it's easy to have the right attitude when you fit the culture. So you see how it's like
Right.
it's a waterfall,
Right.
right? So we
Right.
start with the culture. We definitely look for the attitude. And then there has to be some aptitude as well. In the more specialized roles, like where we're looking for like good, strong middle managers who can take the burden off our shoulders.
Right.
We might be looking for skill as well. Like
Right.
it's almost a prerequisite.
Some experience doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, but even then, we've found that some of the guys who come in and just have the right approach end up learning some of the more advanced skills just through on-job experience and training.
Yeah.
Following your guys.
And I mean, that's how I did it, right? I mean, I was just making pretty pictures on the computer, but I figured it all out.
Yeah.
And we just want guys who want to figure it out.
Are you still involved in the design process at all?
No, because we're a manufacturer, we don't design. And
Not at all.
well,
Do you input at all from a design standpoint, saying, "Hey, this might be a little bit better if we do this way"? Or
Well, yeah,
Yeah, for
especially
sure.
since you're manufacturing and installing, you probably you can say, it's not going to work. That's pretty the way it looks, but
yeah,
Yeah, and we have a really good relationship with our designers. So
they know.
They always consult with us. I mean, always is a big word, but
Right.
very often consult
Right.
with us. And I actually am involved with SEGD, is a Society for Experiential Design. It's like the organization of designers that design the stuff we build. And so I'm like co-chair chapter of the Orange County chair. And so I'm still involved in the design on that side of things. But as a company, we're a manufacturer, and we think it's a bad business model to compete with the people who are giving us work, right? So
yeah.
let them do what they're really good at.
Yeah, we'll do what we do, and you do what you do.
Yeah, but I do absolutely like to use my design experience to help guide and like, hey, this is what you want, this is what you want to achieve, and I'm speaking designerese with you,
Right.
but we're going to translate it to fabrication now.
Yeah.
And that seems to work well. I mean, even before CG, that's just was always my goal, was to let's just get everybody on the same page and understand what we're talking about.
Yeah. So you have two different buildings. Are there different subsets of signs or different skill sets that are going on in each of those buildings? Are they both for manufacturing, or how does it work for you guys?
Yeah, they're both for manufacturing, but I call it like the clean dirty, you know?
Okay.
We got the clean building that's got my paint booth in it. We don't want all the dust getting into the paint booth and making the paint look bad, right? And then I've got production in that clean building where we're applying graphics and we want to keep things looking good.
Right.
And then the dirty is like the welding and the sanding, and we have like a couple of big router tables. It's all, you got metal shavings everywhere. So
Right.
we just thought it made sense, and they're both in Santa Ana. So, and they're close. It's super easy to just transfer product
Right,
back and
right.
forth. My installers are coming in from out of the field all day long. So on their way in, just stop by the shop, pick stuff up, and bring it over.
Yeah.
It was the thing we were the most afraid about that ended up being like the easiest. When we went into this, we were like, I'm not sure about moving all the product back and forth, but let's see how it works. And it was a non-issue. So yeah, all of the stuff we make, we
Actually
are
made it better. Yeah.
yeah, it's been great. And it was this heightened accountability because this guy's now putting it on the truck and he's counting it and making sure it's in good shape before it gets to us.
Yeah.
And then the guys who are receiving it make sure like that this was in good shape so that if there was something wrong, it didn't come from my building. It came. And then so it's helped us to A, like identify and track problems, but B, also just create a
We
sense.
get more eyes on it too, right? It's not just one person doing it and sending it out.
Right. And
Yeah.
the accountability level, I mean, the amount of errors has just really plummeted. I wouldn't say plummeted. It's not like we had a huge amount of errors, but just any errors are frustrating.
Right.
It just doesn't,
especially when you catch them too late or they're in front of the customer and it's
yeah, and it doesn't happen anymore. So it like something that we were afraid of that turned out to be great. And the other thing is, it was COVID and keeping people separated. Who would have thought?
Made it easier, right?
Who would have thought that would have?
It's almost like you did it on purpose, right?
Yeah. I should rewind it and I'll see we planned it all. Yeah. Make it sound like some kind of like master planner.
Yeah, Nostradamus guy over here. Yeah. So from an employee standpoint, are there? I guess maybe not an employee standpoint, but just from an operations standpoint, are there things you guys deal with that are kind of daily headaches for you guys, or daily struggles that you guys have to deal with from a management standpoint?
I think from a manufacturing standpoint, the daily struggles are just dealing with a large number of people that have a lot of just personal issues, right? Mm-hmm. So at any time, like, how do you plan a day of production when you know that you might have people who are not going to show up today, or that sort of thing? That's really a personnel issue, the only big challenge I have. Right. Training, when we first started this whole, experiment was a challenge, but we seem to have worked those kinks out, and people have been here long enough that I no longer have to worry about training like the guy that comes in entry level, because there's so many other guys in the shop that know that job that they now can just train. And I think that's where our middle management is strengthened. As far as
that helps too from an employee standpoint, and like you said, from a management standpoint, if you have employees that take pride in their job to that level, that they want to be working next to somebody that knows how to do it and how to do it right. So they're going to take it upon themselves to make sure that they're doing it right. That says a lot about the management in a company, I think. Yeah.
Well, the whole idea is that everybody's going to be able to do their job better than we can do it.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, just think big picture in life, you always want to get people to stand on your shoulders.
Right.
And we just take that principle to like a micro level with employees. Is just, we want you to do better than us. If everybody only did it as good as I did it, the company would be horrible.
Right. So, you never grow anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, but on the install, it's another challenge, right? Because they're out in the field on the job sites with the customers, basically executing the contract, right? Putting the last thing up, and we're a finished trade. So it's the thing everybody sees.
Right.
They're doing the last step that the contract requires of us. So making sure that the communication is handled properly, making sure that there's no misinformation being transferred. Because if you think about it, he has a set of blueprints or shop drawings, and that's a 2-dimensional document. And now you get it out in the field, and there's all kinds of challenges and coordination issues, and being able to communicate that with a general contract superintendent who's just like, hey, get it up because I want to have a TCO.
Right.
Versus a customer that's like, I want it to look this special way, or a designer that says, I have a vision for this whole room. And now you're asking this installer, who's a sign installer,
right,
to somehow not
to appease everybody.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, fortunately for us, we have some guys that are just, they get it. They understand that there's a lot of sticky to these things. Yeah. So they communicate really well with us, and just keeping the phones on all the time. But I think that can be stressful.
For sure. Yeah. It takes the right kind of guy or person to be out there handling that from 6 different ways. And I'm just trying to put a sign up, guys.
Yeah. Right. The right amount of there's got to be some level of self-confidence.
Right. Yeah.
But then at the same time, enough humility to be like, let me call in and have somebody else tell me what to do with this. So,
right.
Yeah. It's a special kind of person.
That's fun.
Yeah.
So how involved? Where do you guys get involved? Is it more from a GC on a project, or is it actual property owners that are getting in touch with you to work with them?
Mostly, we just get a lot of word of mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we don't typically do just blanket low bid with GCs.
Right.
Certainly, we do get recommended by GCs, and we have some really good working relationships, with Western National and other G's, like I just said, Snyder Langston. Yeah, we've done several projects for them since I've been on board. But usually there's an owner, and the owner's worked with us before, and they're like, use these guys, or at least have them give you a number. The designers, like I said, I mean, we have really good relationships with these designers. Some of the designers are guys that I worked with, 15, 20 years ago. And so the designer sometimes will recommend us. In the hospital market, we have our sales exec has been involved for a very long time, and she's an expert. And so a lot of hospitals retain her just as like hey, what should we do next? Or consulting.
As a consultant, yeah.
Yeah, and so we get that through all of her relationships.
That's smart, man. You guys got it connected on every side, so you kind of get them referred from anybody and everybody from all sides of it.
We're trying. That's what we're trying to do. Yeah, I mean, in the past life in the stadium world, it was the same thing. Just made good relationships with designers and in this instance, GCs. I mean, stadiums are a whole nother ballgame, right?
Right.
No.
Pun intended. That was a bad one.
Yeah.
So what? Yeah, no, go ahead.
Oh no, yeah. The GC is so much more involved in those kinds of projects that their input gets you in the door a lot more.
He's a little bit more weighted, yeah.
Versus like with luxury housing, a lot of it's the developer and things like that.
Right.
So kind of on that note, something we've recently started talking to a lot of our guests about is marketing or digital marketing. Or are there things that you guys are doing? I mean, I can't imagine that you see your buyer, a property owner or a developer or a general contractor or something, going to social media to look for people. But is it something that you guys out there visible on those kind of things? Are you being diligent about those things or being purposeful about some of those things? Or how are you guys marketing on that aspect, if at all?
Yeah, I mean, we are being purposeful. I mean, there was a point in time when we were just so focused on other things and the business was coming in so well that we're like, okay, we'll just make this a lower priority. But really putting a lot of effort into LinkedIn.
Yep.
Being good about, like, not just, at first it was just us posting about our projects from our personal pages, but then actually starting a LinkedIn page for the brand. Well, the first thing we did was we worked on the logo, right? And then
can't just be some letters up there, huh?
Said the designer, yeah.
Right. We wanted to have something.
How ironic is that? Is it the design and design company?
That's not ironic, though. I feel like it's like the mechanic is the one with all the broken cars in his yard, right? Because he just doesn't have time. He's doing other people's stuff.
Well, and that's the challenge, right? Is that you want to project yourself as like, hey, we care about your image, so we have to show that we care about our image.
Yeah.
So I think that we never stopped. We weren't going as hard on it as we are now.
Yeah.
Like where, we started the LinkedIn page. We started the, making posts every once a month. And then we started thinking about it. Like, we need to do this more often.
Yeah.
Stay
relevant.
We've seen a lot of really cool feedback from it. And we've had people starting to, follow, but not only that, but to engage and interact and to ask questions, getting involved in SEGD. We've had people just reach out and say, hey, can you give me a quote on this stuff? And I mean, I've had a couple of pretty big name clients that I haven't quite inked any deals with yet that just came through those.
At least you're talking to them though, right? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, wouldn't have been talking to them before.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only way that they had heard of us.
Are you guys managing all that stuff yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have anybody dedicated to that role only?
Yeah, not quite there yet. It's pretty much just me.
Yeah.
And that was, part of even with, meeting you guys.
Right.
I was like, hey, this is a great opportunity to.
Well, that's kind of what we find is most people that are willing and ready to come on and do something like this are either established in that area or are curious and are getting started in that aspect, which, I mean, to my next point is pretty delayed in respects to other construction relative to other industries. It's pretty far behind in that kind of stuff. So it's fun to kind of be on the leading edge of a lot of that stuff and seeing a lot of stuff kind of happen. Is there thoughts of an Instagram page where you're posting your stories on there of guys putting up signs and making signs and all that kind of stuff?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Been talking about it. I
feel like that's the point where you need somebody else to come in and do it because I know from our aspect where hate's a strong word. I strongly dislike it too, and I'm not good at it, which is why
probably why.
Yeah, we've finally hired somebody, but it's just fun to kind of see from the contractor's perspective something that 6, 7, 8 years ago somebody said, "Hey man, we want you to take pictures and post videos of all the stuff that you're doing and smile about it, and make all these fun videos." Like,
why?
The contractor would have said, "Fuck you," you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
He would have looked you in the eyes and said, "You're an idiot. Get out of here." But now, I mean, that's kind of the way things are going.
Yeah, I mean, we see the value in it. Obviously, we want to be targeted to the right audience.
Right.
We don't want to just spin our wheels.
Right.
And I mean, sometimes I've seen a lot of that done just for the sake of vanity.
Right.
And We're so busy that we don't have time to be vain.
It's purposeful. It's
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Everything has
doing
to,
it with a purpose. Yeah. And having a set plan with it. Yeah, for sure.
Well, and like getting a sales exec, and I realized like we need to have our best foot forward on the web because our customers may not care what our website looks like, but as she goes out and meets new people, they're going to want
a business card. They're going to they're going to want to look at something. Yeah.
Yeah. It just lends credibility.
Yeah.
Like everybody else that has already worked with us knows we're great. Like it's not those people.
Yeah.
So, working on that. And then I also know other people in the industry who have really good Instagram presence or really good, photos and videos and montages and things that I don't think I can do.
Right.
But we know somebody who can.
Right. Yeah.
And so I already think that they've set a footprint or even a model. Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, let's just go in this direction. We don't need to be innovators in marketing.
Right.
We just need to follow the people.
You just need to have a presence, right? Yeah. Right. You just need to you need to have a presence, and that's why I think it's fun to kind of talk to somebody like you about it. I mean, we've had guys that focus on residential construction or some aspect of residential, and that's huge for them, right? Because as a homeowner, that's probably the first and only thing they're doing when they know your name. If you're trying to get into their home to do something, whereas the commercial side, it's probably not the first thing that they're doing. But like you said, because it's becoming such a big deal, and there are so many other people out there doing it, it's one of those things where they might look at your bid, call some references, look at your other jobs, and then they might look online and they might look to see if you have any, just to see what's out there, and if you know what I mean. So it's kind of one of those things where. Yeah, you might not be generating a lot of business as a commercial contractor through your Instagram and your website and your Facebook and LinkedIn and all that stuff, but it's one of those things that, like you said, lends to credibility and creates an image of you and your company. So
which opens the relationship, which eventually might turn into business.
Yeah, and it lends to, in my opinion, it shows a bit of transparency, right? I mean, if you don't have any sort of online presence at all, it's almost like, well, what are they trying to hide from you?
Exactly.
Especially in 2020, right?
Yep.
Or, I mean, are they big enough to be?
Yeah, 5-6 years ago, if you weren't online, it was kind of like, well, nobody else is. But now, if you're not online, it's kind of like, well, what are you hiding, right? Everybody else is online showing me everything. Why aren't you? So, yeah, it's so I get lost in that world a little bit because it's fun to kind of go down that road. Well, especially with contractors.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's contractors I've worked with in the past where I went online to check their stuff out.
Yeah.
And their website was awful. And I worked with them and they were great.
Right.
And they did big projects.
Yeah.
But they just didn't know how to convey that. And I think that was one of the things we were suffering from is that we were doing big projects for big name people and we were succeeding at them and we were knocking it out of the park. But yet our website looked like, we were like
1995.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's like a pride thing too, right? Now you've got somewhere to kind of display all those things that you guys are doing great and doing well for all those big companies. So
yeah. And I think that every step and every piece of growth, you're going to be a little bit behind on some of those things. And
or a little uncomfortable or a little,
And it was more important for us that we got the jobs done, got things done on time, made good looking signs than we marketed, right? My customer is more important than my website, but we've just put in a little extra time and made it work. And I think the website's super cool now. We want to do more, like you were saying, videos, montages to show the shops and the capabilities. One of the challenges I've had is we'll have a job and they'll give us the contract on all the interior ADA signs. I'm like, well, great, but I want to do all of it. And then they'll say, well,
we didn't know you could.
Yeah. So now with all of that, it's not necessarily even getting new customers. It's the customers we already have realizing we do all of this stuff and we're not small anymore. Everybody's small when they start, right? Every company starts with, but we're down the road. I mean, we can handle all this stuff. And I'm actually
you're almost being typecasted, right? They pigeonhole you because we use them for just the interior ADA signs, and it's like, no, that was 5 years ago. We can do all of it now. Yeah. And I think people kind of get in that mantra, but as long as you're educating and you're informing and you're, like I said, your customer always comes first for sure. Yeah. But then you just do a little bit here on the side, and before you know it,
Yeah. Where you're doing, I want to be doing the next big stadiums, and we can do it now. We have the shop, we're scaled up. And when I first came in, that was my dream is what can we do to get to the point where we can run these really, really big jobs? Because we have the skills. Yeah. We have the abilities. We just need to scale up. And yet at the same time, service customers that we still have.
Right.
And that's the adventure.
It's a dance. Yeah, for sure.
And it's fun. I mean, it keeps us busy. I've never been bored.
Yeah.
ever since jumping on board with Antonio, like I've never been bored.
I feel especially with signs, right? I mean, literally everyone is different.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like, I mean, you can build a couple of the same houses, right? Or you can put together the same counters or tile or cabinets or whatever. But I mean, I have to imagine, unless you're doing multiple signs for the same company, like almost every sign is different, which is
all the big hero signs are different. All the code, the ADA Braille stuff.
right.
It's each project is different, but sometimes you'll have like these, every single room needs a sign, right? Yeah. So we might crank out like 1,000. They look the same, but every Braille message is different. Every lettering is different. So it's not like you can just make a mold.
Right.
Figuring out how to do how to ramp up for that specific little action, and then be able to then take that down and apply it to the next sign that might need a different action, slightly different.
That's crazy.
Yeah, figuring all that out, it's fun.
Yeah. So what's the future look like for you guys? I know you said, geographically you're looking to spread up north. I mean, are there other regions geographically, other verticals you guys are looking to get into?
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking a lot about expanding out east.
Okay.
And
is that just because you know that from working back there?
I think it just is a good plan. I mean, we don't want to stop growing.
Yeah.
And at some point in time, like, you're going to need to get exposed to other markets. Yeah. And it also makes a lot of sense to, if you're going to be working nationwide, to have manufacturing in a centralized location where you can, ship it and move stuff around. Yep. So at the same time, because our signage is so custom, you have to keep operations where your customers are, and especially to be responsive. I mean, one of the things that really endeared the company to the customer was our ability to just respond really quick. I mean, TCO's fire inspector comes, I need these signs, I'm going to be out next week, they better be up. You have to be responsive. Right. So figuring out how that's going to work, and how like the big hero signs that take, several weeks to build versus the signs that need to be made in a couple of days, how that all is going to sort out with having, manufacturing in different states. That's our next challenge.
Yeah.
But we've been having some good discussions about it, and figuring out the right personnel and how to start with the right people. You need an adventurer to be able to be on the other side of the country and help you develop that part of the business.
Yeah, that road warrior, not afraid to get out there and hit the road.
Yeah, and I want to hit the road. I mean, I have a lot of friends and contacts through the years that have projects that I'd love to be part of.
Yeah.
So being able to, now that, like I said, we're scalable, now that we've got a lot of the procedures in place, being able to just remind everybody that I'm still alive and that kind of stuff.
Still here doing it.
Yeah. And good things come from that, like just relationship building a lot of times.
Well, it's just building that network, right? I mean, you lay the groundwork with that network, and then things start rolling, and then get that ball rolling downhill, and it starts rolling a little bit faster, and that's when you start expanding.
And it's always weird how the next project comes in through some contact that you didn't even realize you had.
Right.
So that's what we're doing. We're trying to do it in a healthy way, and at the same time, continue
organically at a manageable pace, and
not push too hard. Like I said, I mean, we do definitely observe what some of the other players are doing and how well they're doing it, and say, hey, that's a good idea, let's do that. And then sometimes we look at it and be like, that'd probably spin our wheels. We don't want to do that.
Yeah. Very cool, man. Yeah. Well, we appreciate your time. Want to give you an opportunity to let the people know where to find you, how to get a hold of you guys. So cgsignage.com is our website, and it's just, which is beautiful now and redone and looks awesome. We're proud of it. Yeah. We showcase some of the employees there. You can see the guys that actually make the signs. And awesome. But just scroll down there and email us, or that's probably the easiest way to get in touch with us. And it'll just go through to one of us. Perfect. Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks so much, man. We appreciate it, Steve. Thanks for having me. Yeah, thanks for coming on. Yeah, it was good to meet you guys. Stay in touch and stay safe out there, and good luck. Definitely. Appreciate it. Thanks, sir. Hey, thanks for listening. If you've made it this far, go ahead and give us a like or 5 stars or whatever means you like us. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next episode. And check out our website for more video content and extras. While you're there, shoot us a message if you want to be a guest. We'd love to have you on. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.